Okay, so the new Star Wars Episode 9 trailer dropped yesterday, and we are going to be seeing the closure of the Skywalker saga. I've been a longtime Star Wars fan, and initially when I watched the trailer, there's always that sense of excitement. To be honest, there was a little bit of a mixed feeling when I got ready for this trailer. I know there's so many videos out there that are angry about The Last Jedi, and Kathleen Kennedy must be destroyed and everything else. And you know what? It's almost been 2 years. I know there were issues. You gotta let it go about the endless rants about a 2-year-old movie at this point. But that's not to say that there were some issues. I really liked The Force Awakens and everything that it was doing. It was a goodwill movie. A lot of people had issues with the prequels, and this was kind of a greatest hits, kind of a reboot, kind of a gentle olive branch to the fans. And there were a lot of familiar beats, which was good. It was kind of felt like they were reestablishing trust with everything that was going on with the new direction of Star Wars, and I liked that, but they also introduced a lot of new mysteries and things to uncover in future films and everything like that. It was familiar, but there was also the promise of something intriguing. I was fine with Rogue Squadron, and then Last Jedi came out, and honestly, I'm a bad judge when it comes to Star Wars movies initially, because there's always that hype and excitement that builds up, and I always fall for it and get into it. And then when, some of these movies have not been as strong, and then it's like, it takes me a couple viewings and a little bit of time to really process, and it's like, hey, and I'm sorry, Last Jedi was one of those movies. I really liked what Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher brought to the table in terms of Last Jedi, but Rian Johnson, I felt, wasted an entire installment in the film. It was very nihilistic. It was very much a nothing matters, nobody matters, you don't matter. And then, just all the stuff that J.J. Abrams built up in the previous film was just like, nah. And I didn't like it. I mean, at the end of the day, other than Luke dying in Last Jedi, sorry, spoilers, 2-year-old movie, other than Luke dying in the last film, it's like the next day after Force Awakens, and like all the characters that you got to know from Force Awakens, all of them made stupid decisions. All of them. They just like completely, their brains dropped out of their head and ran around, did all these stupid things, and ultimately accomplished nothing. And it was frustrating. And like the only thing that happened is Luke died and kept the final bits of the Resistance going for Episode 9. And it was it was just a frustrating movie to watch, and like I said, outside of Mark and Carrie's performances, there's not a lot that movie adds. I know there's the whole, it's about family, and it's about subverting expectations, and finally we get a Star Wars film that's not the same old thing, but, that's what all those side stories were kind of for, I felt. That, this was George Lucas always went on about that whole, there's an arc, there's a poetry, there's a symmetry, and it didn't always work, but in some places it did, and it kind of felt like they were going to do that with these new films. And I think J.J. Abrams' whole plan was, and then Rian Johnson came in and did his own thing, and now they're like, great, what are we going to do with this last film? And that's in addition to Carrie Fisher dying, so there's just another big mess. I mean, you have Han Solo dead, you have Luke Skywalker dead, you have Carrie Fisher dead in real life. What now? So it's a little muddy in terms of what are we going to do with this next film? What do we have left to work with? And it looks like initially they're going to retcon probably some of Johnson's changes, which I'm okay with. But, it's like they already started out with you already know everything to Rey. You could hear Luke's voice talking to her. And that was another issue I had. It's like Rey became a Jedi without even trying. It's like she became a Jedi with Luke's lightsaber, Han Solo's Millennium Falcon, and at the end of the day, it was a day. It was maybe 2 days at most. I'm hoping that they will give her more to work with, and instead of nothing matters, it's like we're always with you, and no one's ever really gone, and really hammering home on that. And I think there's going to be as many retcons to Last Jedi as they can possibly do in light of the situation, but they're still stuck with all the messes Last Jedi made. Obviously, Carrie Fisher is going to be back in archive footage. I don't know how much is actually going to be scenes they actually filmed, how many is going to be scenes where they kind of digitally insert her and maybe kind of CG her body or make her say things that she didn't. I don't know how much of this is going to be an actual Carrie performance or are they going to take existing footage and try to shoehorn it in to make it fit within the film's context? It's going to be interesting, and I'm going to... It's going to be hard in its own way, because I felt like I said goodbye to Carrie Fisher in the last film, and that was emotional for me. And here we go again. So that's going to be hard again to say goodbye to Carrie in this one, and Princess Leia. Couple exciting things I really enjoyed. Lando Calrissian's back. Again, going back to Last Jedi, I kind of felt that code breaker that Finn and Rose were looking for should have, by all accounts, been Lando. I don't know why they just had some random dude that didn't matter to the story at all. Again, all that subversion that was so artsy and brilliant, whatever. But, you know, Lando's back in this one. It shouldn't have taken 3 films, but at least we got him. I hope they don't follow the tropes of this new sequel trilogy and kill him off. I will be really pissed off if they did. It looks like they're actually giving C-3PO some more action, which I'm happy for. He has been sidelined for so many of these movies outside of the original trilogy. I'm glad they're actually putting him back in the action again. Haven't seen R2-D2. What's going on with that? Again, I hope he's in there somewhere. I hope they don't kill him, because that seems to be the thing. But, you know, it's... The Last Jedi made me really go back and really consider what it is about these new Disney-owned films that actually is resonating with me. And at the end of the day, it's seeing all the old characters again. It's seeing Han and Luke and Leia and Lando and C-3PO and R2-D2 and Chewbacca. It's seeing them again, and seeing the Millennium Falcon, and seeing some modernized stormtroopers that still look familiar enough, and Yoda cameos and all that. At the end of the day, that's all I really seem to care about, and I don't feel that should be what these films are like. And to be fair, in Force Awakens, I did like Rey, and I did like Finn, and I did like Poe, and I really felt that they would be the next generation and provide their own unique outlook on the trilogy, and kind of, you know, they would take the center stage. And I was perfectly fine with that, and I'm fine with the casting and everything else. And I just, for all the goodwill that the story built in Force Awakens, I just felt Last Jedi messed it up. And I'm hoping that the Rise of Skywalker, this new film, is going to give them a chance to shine in ways that they could not and did not in the last film. And it's unfortunate, and I'm not going to go on a full rant, but you can't talk about the Rise of Skywalker without referencing the last film, unfortunately. And it's, at the end of the day, I felt Episode 8 was a wasted entry. Outside of Luke's plot arc, which I think they could have done a lot more, and I think they could have kept him alive. But, again, you know, I'm not in charge of these, I'm not making these things, but here we are. And, of course, I think one of the most interesting things about this new trailer is Luke mentions no one's ever really gone, and it's very clearly Palpatine's laugh at the end. You can hear him cackling, so does that mean, are they bringing back the Emperor? Because Rey and Finn and Poe and 3PO and Chewbacca and BB-8 are all looking at something that very clearly looks like the wreckage of the Death Star 2. Are they going to go back to the second Death Star? Are they going to be going back to where Endor was? I don't think that planet is Endor, but I do think it's probably something in the neighboring system. If this is right, you know, this is all theory and speculation. I could be wrong. It could be a burned down Sith temple for all I know. But I think it's interesting if they bring Palpatine back, and it wasn't really Snoke that was running the whole thing. We still, again, don't know anything about Snoke. Why did he matter? How did he gain power? We don't know anything that happened from Return of the Jedi up to The Force Awakens, and frustrating as a longtime Star Wars fan. And I wonder, because they are bringing Palpatine back, or at least that's what they're heavily implying, or at least maybe it's some machination that he had, you know, protocols set in place that this would eventually take off, and he really was the one behind the whole thing. But if they bring Palpatine back in some form, whether like he came back in a clone body, I always hoped they'd invoke the Dark Horse, Dark Empire saga, which is a really great comic book series that came out in the early 90s. And that was one of the things that I got from Last Jedi, is that, you know, Luke walks out and faces down the modernized AT-AT walkers, and that was something that happened in Dark Empire, and he did it here, and it was a little bit different. Again, subverting expectations, but if they bring back the clone Palpatine, that could be cool, but they've waited a long time to do this. But let's see, I guess we'll have to wait until we get to that. I kind of hope that Luke is not dead. I kind of hope that maybe they'll figure some BS nonsense that, no, he just projected elsewhere. He was so strong of a Jedi, he just projected elsewhere. And even in the last series of Rebels, Ezra went and saved Ahsoka from being killed by Vader. Again, spoilers, one of those things. So maybe they might do some weird time. They introduced the whole time travel element into the Star Wars universe, so maybe they can do something retroactive where they save Luke from death, or, I don't know, towel off his face so he's not so tired, or give him a Powerade or something, not blue space teat milk or green milk or whatever the hell it was they did in Last Jedi. Obviously, Mark Hamill's in the saga, The Rise of Skywalker. I couldn't remember the name of it for a second, but The Rise of Skywalker. He's in it in some capacity. I hope they make his part meaningful in this one. And not saying that what he did in Last Jedi wasn't meaningful. It's just the Luke of old would have risked everything to save his friends and his family and everything else. And I just kind of felt that they did the Luke character something of a disservice. And even Mark Hamill kind of groused about that in interviews. So it's not just me being gripey about that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about from, what essentially boiled down to a 2-minute trailer. It's interesting that they have waited this long before they've even mentioned anything about Star Wars. I think Disney's running scared right now. I think they're in massive damage control, and I know everyone's trying to blame it off on Solo, which I actually liked. I liked Solo. That was a fun movie. I think, unfortunately, it caught all the flack from The Last Jedi, and it suffered because of that. I don't think Solo was that, I like I said, I enjoyed Solo. I don't think it was the thing that killed it. I think Last Jedi divided the fan base. Some people, as I said, think this Last Jedi is the greatest film that ever existed. And I think some people don't like The Last Jedi because it broke a lot of crap and it felt just, it was a giant multi-million 2.5-hour troll. And I'm sorry, it was. For longtime fans, it kind of sucked. And that was a little frustrating. But, again, there are people who think it's the highest work of art that ever existed above, like, the Sistine Chapel and the Mona Lisa and whatever. But the Statue of David, I mean, it's that level to them, and it's not. Sorry. It's just not. So, again, we've got a couple months to think about what's going on. I'm sure they'll drop a couple other things. I find it interesting that this is going to be the last Star Wars film for a while. They're taking an extended hiatus from making any more Star Wars films, so we're not getting 3 or 4 Star Wars films every single year like what they had planned. I'm sorry, Star Wars was never meant to be a cinematic universe like Marvel. It just wasn't. So, they tried to make it into a thing and then they screwed up. But, again, it's not the end of the world. They just had a crappy entry in an overall good series. I mean, they've had some other rough ones, but, whatever. Anyway, so what did you think of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker? I'm cautiously excited. I'm cautiously hopeful. I'm hoping they can fix some of the things that broke. I'm hoping that some of the questions that were raised in Force Awakens will finally be answered in this one, because they definitely weren't in the last one. So, we'll see. Thanks for stopping by. Please, again, just let me know what you think. I'd like to start a discussion on this one and see what you think about the Rise of Skywalker and if this is going to be a pretty good one overall. Or you can also call me a terrible person because I didn't think Last Jedi was the highest work of art of all time. But I haven't made like 80,000 videos complaining about it either, so kind of look at that in context. So, it's disappointing. That's about it. I'm not going to rant. But anyway, thanks a lot. I will see you that next time. Oh, yeah, I'm sure you're wondering if you've watched a couple of my other videos, what's with this? What's going on with that? It's been a long few weeks. That's why I haven't done a lot of videos. So I will be explaining that very shortly and probably in my next video. So hopefully things will get back to normal by then. But until then, I'll see you that next time. Take care.